I'm trying to grind my way to 1,000 platinum trophies while expanding my video game repertoire, and needless to say, this grind is going to take a little bit of time. Okay, it's going to take a long time, but the more people that subscribe to the channel, the faster I can put out these videos. But for the 9th platinum trophy in the series, I decided it's finally time to get acquainted with the Devil May Cry series. The first game actually started out as an early version of Resident Evil 4, but it was way too out of scope to be considered a Resident Evil game. So they replaced the zombies with demons, turned Leon Kennedy into an emo, and kept the same dog water camera controls for some reason, and bam, Devil May Cry was born. There are only 34 trophies in the game, but apparently it sits at an 8 out of 10 difficulty with a minimum of 3 playthroughs, so I definitely have my work cut out for myself because I'm just used to playing JRPGs that take a long time to beat but aren't necessarily challenging. And with a difficulty called Dante Must Die, I already have the wall patching kit on standby. But we gotta take baby steps and beat the game on normal and hard difficulty first, and those playthroughs aren't gonna complete themselves. So Devil May Cry starts out with this woman named Trish crashing into Dante's door that happens to be called Devil May Cry, which sets a really nice tone for the rest of the game. They do the tango for a second, and Trish asks Dante to help her take care of the lord of the underworld named Mundus, who plans on opening up a portal to let out a bunch of demons. So the two of them head to Malay Island, where Trish just platforms her way into the mansion and leaves Dante to wander around on his own. There was really only one thing I could do at this point, and that was to enter the gothic looking mansion. And after running around the inside for a little bit, I collected my first of many blue orb fragments. These are important items that are scattered throughout the game that contribute to increasing Dante's overall HP, but it takes 4 fragments to make one whole blue orb that actually affects the stat. It's also important to note that for this playthrough on normal difficulty, I'm going to focus on achieving as many of the trophies as possible, which includes things like collecting all the blue orb fragments, collecting a bunch of red orbs, completing all the secret missions, but more importantly, clearing the game without any deaths. Luckily, this game works on a mission system without an autosave feature, so if I do perish during the run, then I can just save scum and start the mission over. Anyway, after wandering around the foyer of the mansion, I made my way up this spiral staircase, met the first enemies of the game, grabbed this key that opened up the rest of the mansion, and cleared the first mission. Unfortunately, not every mission clear grants a trophy, but that's alright, because during mission 2, I was able to collect enough blue orb fragments to complete my first full blue orb, which unlocked the first trophy of the run. There was more running around the mansion to open up more doors during this mission, but eventually I was stabbed in the chest by a massive sword that granted me new powers that eventually can be upgraded using the red orbs that I've been gobbling up after defeating enemies thus far. But mission 3 is where the fun actually begins though, as all that running around and talking to inanimate objects triggers this giant spider scorpion thing named Phantom who really wanted to game end me. Up until this point, the marionettes and synthesites that I've been battling were basically mash attack to win, but this fight actually takes more than 2 brain cells to beat, but the game still isn't deserving of that 8 out of 10 difficulty yet. And after using my raid infused sword on that ugly bug, I was awarded with a trophy for surviving the encounter. This area is also home to the first secret mission in the game, in which I had to parkour across this broken bridge without falling into the water, and then land a critical hit on a synthscythe, which unlocked me another trophy for completing a secret mission. Like with the blue orb fragments, secret missions are scattered throughout the game, and I'll need to complete all 16 of them if I want the platinum, which adds a little bit of difficulty to the 0 deaths trophy, because if I need to restart a main mission, then it most likely means that I'll need to redo a secret mission as well. But it was now time to continue my adventure through the mansion in mission 4. But before I progressed too far, I decided to do some red orb farming because there are a few trophies tied to amassing a good amount of them, and it just makes the playthrough that much easier because those red orbs are also used to upgrade weapons. So the strat here is to simply deplete Phantom's health as he's chasing you down the hallway. You can just activate Devil Trigger and completely body him while earning a good chunk of red orbs. Then all you have to do is save and then reset the mission, which allows you to keep all those red orbs you just earned, and then you rinse and repeat. While farming for a little bit, I acquired a total of 10,000 red orbs, which popped the trophy Seeing Red. I then decided to go ahead and continued my way up the mansion's various floors and ended up in this bedroom where this demon looking fellow walked out of a mirror and beckoned me out onto the terrace. This triggered another but more intimidating boss fight. And while Nelo Angelo looks super dangerous, I easily won the fight by spamming the same move and just dodging out of the way of his super choreographed attacks. Beating Nelo Angelo netted me 2 trophies, one for surviving the encounter and another for accumulating 25,000 red orbs. The next mission is an easy one to knock out a couple of the more difficult trophies in the game for clearing a mission without taking damage and achieving an S rank on any mission. The hardest part about this mission is making sure that you have enough superhero juice to easily take out the demon dog, but after After putting a few electric charges into the shadow, I ran back inside, jumped down to the bottom floor, cleared the mission, and unlocked 2 more trophies for my endeavors. I then had to continue on my journey to find that portal that Trish mentioned at the start of the game, and after sludging my way through the disease-riddled sewers while collecting blue ore fragments and completing a handful of secret missions, I found myself on what seems to be one of the roofs of the mansion, where I had another run-in with Phantom. And this fight was actually easier than the first encounter, because the area was way more open in comparison, which caused less janky camera angles. Also, Trish finally makes another appearance after ditching me at the start of the game, but she doesn't make herself known to Dante and just kind of stands there without providing anything of value. After the encounter with Phantom was finished, I made my way to a different part of the island where I found a pair of flaming goblins called Ifrit, and after giving them a try, I decided that Alistair was more fitting of my button mashing playstyle. So I let the goblins collect dust and continued comboing with Alistair, and eventually earned the trophy Thunderstruck for performing an S-rank combo with the weapon. This part of the island is also home to some new enemies, which helped me fill out 50% of the entries for the enemy files, which unlocked another trophy. But picking up Ifrit angered Mundus, who sends another one of his lackeys after me, and this demon is a giant bird that produces red electrical fields named Griffin. And while the Griffin's currents are annoying to deal with, going Super Saiyan with Alistair for a short while melts the monster's health bar, and I was awarded with a trophy for surviving the encounter, which by this point I've gathered that surviving the encounter means that the boss will make another appearance later on in the game. But based on the boss battles so far, I'm sure it'll be a walk in the park. After rummaging through a few more rooms in the castle and using Ifrit to get a trophy for performing an S-rank combo, I stumbled upon another boss encounter with Nelo Angelo, and it seems like he has a few more tricks up his sleeve this time, which caught me a little by surprise. So I finally had to utilize the save scumming technique, which by this point I was 11 missions deep without any deaths. But after learning his new pattern, I sent him back to Mundus where he belongs and earned another trophy for besting him in a battle. Along the path to Nelo, I also completed the 6th secret mission in the game, which earned me another trophy. Eventually, I found myself on a wrecked pirate ship and swam my way up to the deck where the vessel starts moving on its own after I cleared out the enemies. And guess who decided to show up? The double trigger strat is still super OP though, so this second encounter with the Griffin is just as quick as the first one. After riding the ship back to the exact same spot where I initially left, I made my way to the Coliseum using the various items that I've found so far on random pedestals, including the only gun in the game that's kind of out of the way called the Nightmare Beta, which earned me the Gun Collector trophy. I forgot to mention that all the weapons in the game are technically missable, but the shotgun, needle gun, and grenade gun are all pretty in your face with their locations, and I found them without traveling off the beaten path. But once I actually made it inside the Coliseum, I had to fight the Griffin again. After using the grenade gun to bring him down to the ground, I finished him off with some lightning bolts thanks to the good old double trigger and earned the trophy Plucked for finally defeating him once and for all. After finding the Wheel of Time under the Coliseum, I was able to head back to the main part of the mansion where I completed a few more secret missions and encountered a few new enemies in the altered layout of the building. And eventually I returned back to the spot where I first fought Phantom, but this time there was this gloop on the ground that transformed into a gross looking boss called Nightmare. This boss is the most unique out of the bunch because you have to hit these symbols on the wall to make sure he stays in this thick form so you can wail on his weak spots. I did have to save scum a few times here because Nightmare does hit a little harder than the other bosses, but eventually I bested him and earned the trophy for surviving his encounter, which we know is code for he'll be back. I then used my newly acquired Mario 64 powers and jumped through a few paintings to grab some items from more inanimate objects, and finally had my last encounter with Nelo Angelo. This time Nelo wasn't messing around and decided to go Super Saiyan 3 on my ass, but he didn't know that I possessed the power of Super Saiyan 100, so I finished him off for good and earned the Fallen Angel trophy. We then see Trish speaking to who I can only guess is Mundus about Virgil dying, which I'm assuming is the Nelo Angelo, but I don't know that yet because I haven't played Devil May Cry 3. But it seems like Trish actually tricked Dante into coming here and is one of Mundus's lackeys herself. I guess this is supposed to be shocking or something, but the game doesn't make a good effort into making the player actually care about Trish. Anyway, after defeating Nelo, I was able to use the power of these 2 pendants to enter the underworld, but not before the default weapon transformed into the legendary demon Sparta himself. I think anyway. Maybe it's just the weapon that Sparta used way back when, but it's also called Sparta? I don't know. The important thing is Dante has a new weapon to slay some demons with. But remember when I said I can't wait to see Nightmare in a few missions? Well, it's been a few missions since then, which means another run-in with Nightmare is here. This fight was so much easier since the camera actually has room to breathe. And after a few zaps from Alistair's Devil Trigger, the goopy monstrosity was beaten again. I was finally able to enter the underworld and navigate through the gross innards. Like, this place doesn't even look like an underworld. It just looks disgusting with all these organs pulsating everywhere. Eventually, Dante runs into Trish, who finally shows him her true colors and sticks the nightmare on him one more time. And nothing's really changed compared to the last two nightmare encounters, so it was just more zapping weak spots until Trish interfered and closed the gap using her lightning powers. So now I had a tighter area to work with. But ultimately, it didn't matter much, and I sent Nightmare back to Mundus' toilet bowl and earned another trophy. Because of the fight, Trish ends up getting crushed by some falling debris, and for some reason, Dante decides to save her even though she's clearly working with Mundus, and his reason for helping her is even more insane.
Dante, why did you save my life?
Because you look like my mother. Now get out of my sight.
But now that Oedipus stuff is out of the way, I went back to the area where I had just fought Nightmare and completed the last secret mission and unlocked the trophy The Secret's Out. So now the last thing to do to wrap up this playthrough was to meet with the big man himself and fight Mundus. When Dante arrives to the grand hall where Mundus is hanging out, he sees that he has Trish hostage, and for some reason Dante gets emotional over this situation even though he just met this woman like an hour ago. This interaction totally contradicts their last dialogue exchange where Dante literally said that he would game end her the next time they met, but whatever. Mundus uses their somehow strong relationship against them to try and finish off Dante, but Trish breaks from her shackles and protects him, which causes him to use his ultimate form where he can finally fight Mundus. And I'm not gonna lie, this two-phase boss fight is pretty challenging, and I was expecting every boss in the game to be on par with this one, so it was nice to see that I wasn't completely lied to about this series regarding its difficulty. The most annoying part about phase 1 was the fact that the controls are set to Star Fox 64 mode and there's no changing them. But after taking a few seconds to adapt, I clipped Mundus' wings and met him on the ground where he was using a pool of magma as a hot tub. This fight wasn't all too bad, but it was still challenging enough that I needed to reset the fight, which meant that I had to do phase 1 a few times over. But eventually I was able to defeat Mundus and earned a few trophies during the encounter. All that was left to do now was to leave Sparta behind next to a possibly dying Trish for some reason. For real though, what am I missing about the relationship? These two people are essentially strangers, but the game is trying so hard to force some sort of love story here. Somebody, please explain it to me. Anyway, I then made it out of the underworld and back into the mansion where eventually the floor caved out from under me, and I ended up back in the sewers where Eric Cartman from the Trapper Keeper episode of South Park started chasing me. For a second there, it seems like Mundus is actually gonna get the better of Dante when all of a sudden Trish shows up and gives him her powers, so now he has double lightning at his disposal and uses this to finally game in Mundus. Trish and Dante have another heart-to-heart, and we find out that Trish actually isn't a devil because she starts crying and only humans can have emotions. And right as I was about to pull the power cord on my PlayStation from the cringe-inducing dialogue, a small warplane drops into the sewers, which allows the couple to escape, and they live happily ever after in their new store, Devil Never Cry. I actually regret not yanking out the power cord if I'm being honest. So, after wrapping up the Cornball Fest that is the end of the game, I earned a few more trophies for collecting 50,000 red orbs, finishing the game on normal difficulty, and more importantly, finishing the game without using any yellow orbs, aka finishing the game without dying. Unfortunately, there were a few trophies I still needed to clean up that weren't difficulty related, which were Blue Devil for maxing out the health bar, and the Devils in the Details for purchasing all of Dante's skills, so my hard playthrough wasn't going to be too easy. Luckily, this game's difficulties work like New Game Plus, so all of my items and upgrade abilities carry over. And since I was only missing one blue orb fragment that was literally the first one in the game before he even stepped foot in the mansion, I was able to cross one trophy off the list relatively quickly. Another trophy I needed to work on was for unlocking all the entries for every enemy file in the journal, which was super annoying. The game basically wants you to see every move that was programmed for every enemy, and also perform certain actions to some of the enemies. I knew how to save this trophy for the hard playthrough because you can't get it in tandem with the 0 deaths trophy, because some of the entries need Dante to perish in order for them to be unlocked. But I wasn't prepared for how hair-pulling it was going to be. There was actually one entry in particular that I missed during my hard playthrough because I thought I'd be able to encounter the enemy later on, but that wasn't the case, so I added an unnecessary challenge to my DMD playthrough. But that's okay, because in the process of playing through the game on hard, I was able to fully upgrade my weapons, so the last playthrough shouldn't be too bad considering that the difference between normal and hard is negligible at best. There are more tougher enemies sooner in the game, and the enemies just hit a little harder in general, but all all the bosses were just as easy as before, and I was able to use yellow orbs this time and respawn when necessary. And after a couple hours, I was finished with hard mode and ticked off another trophy. So now all I had to do was fill out one more enemy paragraph in my book and beat the game on the hardest difficulty to claim my platinum trophy. And I finally understood why this game is an 8 out of 10 on the difficulty scale. So the difference between normal and hard is whatever, but the ramp from hard to DMD is insane. Every enemy, whether it's a boss or a normie, can just game end you in 3 hits, which means every boss fight pretty much has to be perfect. Once I realized how hard this mode was going to be, I thought it would be cool to count how many deaths I had per boss fight, but I quickly gave up because it was just way too much. I even had to learn how to do animation canceling to beat the third Nelo Angelo fight because he just had to catch you with half a combo and you're done. And on top of all that, the paragraph I needed to unlock was costing me way too many yellow orbs, so I just said F it and decided to do another playthrough after I beat DMD mode. It was also a good thing that I didn't use any extra items during my normal and hard playthrough because I definitely needed them this time around. I was still pretty conservative with them, but once Mundus came around, I used all my invincibility items without any shame. It was a grueling few hours of playing the game on DMD, but after escaping on that warplane for the 3rd time, I finally unlocked the combustible trophy for beating the game on the hardest difficulty. Now, I wish I could have gotten the platinum right then and there, but I still needed to do a 4th additional playthrough until I at least made it to mission 5 so I could have a date with the synth scythes. I didn't know this at the time, but this paragraph is notoriously buggy. You have to land a critical shot on the enemy, which means to hit its mask, but the enemy is so weak that a normal shotgun blast will just end it immediately. So it was literally a couple hours of just shotgunning synth scythes using the same strat over and 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 over until finally the trophy I read you like a book popped, which also caused the platinum trophy to pop. I had a lot of fun hunting for this platinum trophy, and I'm super excited to continue the rest of the series. So if you want to see that, be sure to drop a like and follow, and watch the video on the screen while you're at it.